Welcome to Jurgen's Journeys. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hello, my friends. Today, I'm going to continue our series called Tips for Trips. Right now, I'm focused on preparations that I make before I crank up my rig and leave on a trip. Now, I've already shared 4 tips on how I prepare my tow vehicle. Now, that video is linked right up here. In my last video, I gave you the first 5 tips on how I prepare my trailer at the beginning of the camping season or before a long trip. Now, if you're new to RV camping or you've just bought a used trailer, and many of these tips will apply to you. So please subscribe and follow along as I continue the topic of how to prepare your travel trailer before you leave home. Last thing you want to do is run into problems on your vacation. Tip number 6. Check out all your appliances and make sure they work. Try out the AC on a hot day, because if you're at the beach and then you discover that the capacitor is blown out on your AC or the fan's not working, why, it'll cost you an arm and a leg to have it fixed there while your family moans in the sweltering heat. So try out the awning, try out the microwave, the fridge, just make sure everything works before you hit the road. It's also a great idea to turn that fridge on the day before you plan to load it. If it's like mine, it takes quite a while for it to really get cold. And try out the furnace. Especially if you're camping in the off season, while it's still chilly, make sure that furnace works, that the hot water heater actually makes hot water, that the stove works. Be sure all that fires up properly. And since they all run on propane, the next tip, number 7, is check your bottle gas tanks to be sure that they're full. I did a little video on how you can see for yourself how much is left in them, if you want to check that out. And then make sure that there are no propane leaks. You can usually smell it if there's a leak around your tanks. You need to make sure those are tight. But your LP gas detector will also tell you if you have a leak inside the camper. Speaking of which, tip number 8, by all means, make sure that all your warning devices are operational. The smoke detector, it might need fresh batteries. The LP gas detector on mine was wired into the 12-volt system, but these need to be tested, and they do expire and need to be replaced. Mine only lasted for 5 years. The first time I ordered a replacement, it had an expired date on it, so I had to send it back a couple times before I got a current one. So check all that out on my video on how and why that's done up here in the link I've provided. Tip number 9 is about another vital safety device, the fire extinguisher. It was quite some time after I'd bought our last and current camper that I decided to try out the factory installed fire extinguisher. To my shock and amazement, it wouldn't operate. As I discovered, there was nothing wrong with it, but the pin that had to be pulled out in order to work it couldn't be pulled out. Why? Because it still had a plastic zip tie securing it for shipment. So it took a knife or some scissors to cut the zip tie before I could use the extinguisher. Now, in an emergency where seconds and minutes count, now this could be a serious problem. I'd make sure you have plenty of working fire extinguishers in your rig, in your tow vehicle, in your camper. After having a fire, no one has ever said, "Oh, I had too many of those fire extinguishers laying around." Not so. Make sure you've got good working fire extinguishers. There are many other things you might want to consider in preparing for a new season or a long trip, including the trailer hitch, the camper seals, the stabilizers. But let me suggest one final tip. Number 10, don't overload your rig. When we first started camping, we loaded everything but the kitchen sink, and that's only because the camper already had one of those. And it didn't take long to figure out that we were overloaded with stuff that we didn't even use. I can assure you that a lighter load will travel better and longer. Now don't forget to leave me your tips in the comments below. What do you do to prepare your RV for a long trip or a new season? And also give us a thumbs up if you enjoy the videos, and follow along on this tips for trips that we're doing. Maybe share it on your social media. And if you haven't subscribed, please do that. But at any rate, may all your journeys be safe, and may God bless you.